They are just doing what Archbishop Lefebvre said. And it's no good that we have so many priests running around in this country who decide everything on their own and who say Archbishop Lefebvre was wrong. That's not good. Without Archbishop Lefebvre, we would not have the old Mass anymore. Without Archbishop Lefebvre, we would not have priests anymore who celebrate the old Mass. They would die out. Or they would be among those very, very curious characters who celebrate the old Mass, who celebrate the old breviary, but get themselves ordained secretly from modern bishops. When I was ordained in the new rite, I didn't know better. Honest to God, I did not know better. Thank God it's valid because it was all in Latin, etc., etc. Archbishop Lefebvre always recognized that. And I follow his judgment again, also on this point. When I started to celebrate the new Mass, I didn't know better. Thank God only, not my merit, that I never celebrated in the vernacular, I never gave communion in the hand, I never said anything but the Roman canon, I never said anything but the Confederate Mass, and my prayers of the faithful were of a kind that nobody liked except me. And you would have liked them. People didn't, because I prayed for tradition coming back in the prayers of the faithful. And the prayers of the faithful were said by me, of course, not the faithful. I never permitted that. And after a few months in the priesthood, I couldn't do it anymore. I have to attribute this to the graces of the office. But I was not ordained in the new rite in order to swindle myself into the priesthood. And I do not consider traditional priests who say the old Mass but get themselves ordained by Novus Ordo bishops, I do not consider them serious. There is definitely a doubt to be pronounced on the validity of the new sacraments. I do not say they're all illicit, all invalid. They're all illicit, but I do not say they're all invalid. A future Pope will decide that, finally. There can be no decision on the licitness of them. They cannot be licit. They're against the will of Christ. I've proven this in another part. Priests who celebrate the old Mass should be ordained by bishops who celebrate the old Mass. Priests who celebrate the old Mass should be ordained by bishops who only celebrate the old Mass. Because if you reject the new Mass, you have to have good reasons. It is not sufficient to reject, and it is not allowed to reject the new Mass simply because you don't like it. Of course I detest the new Mass, but that's not the reason why I reject it. I reject the new Mass because it is against the proven will of God, it is illicit, and it is conducing towards heresy. In some translations it's directly heretical. But I reject the new Mass because of reasons of faith. Now anybody who says that you can accept Vatican II, and to a point you can accept the new rite, he does not reject the new Mass for reasons of faith. He rejects the new Mass because he doesn't like it, or because he has what they call theological reasons. They're running a museum. That's all. If you run a museum, it doesn't matter who ordains you. But if you don't, if you say the new Mass is part of another church, which is the only answer to the indefectibility of the church and the infallibility of the church, you say that Vatican II is not Catholic, you say the new Mass is not Catholic, then you have to celebrate the old Mass for reasons of faith. It is impossible to believe in the indefectibility of the church and the infallibility of the church and at the same time reject the new Mass, which the Pope celebrates every day. Impossible. There's only one solution to this problem. And this is not a solution in the sense of finding a way out. It is a solution in the sense of finding what is true. Now, the new Mass is not part of the Latin Rite. It is not part of the Catholic Church. It does not belong to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is still indefectible. The Catholic Church is still infallible. But the priests who say the new Mass are not part of the Catholic Church, objectively, mind you. The great vast majority, I think, I have no way to, I have no insight in souls. Only God knows souls. The great vast majority of priests who celebrate the new Mass because they think this is what they have to do. That does not put them subjectively outside the church. Oh no. Many priests today pronounce heresy, and they believe that this is in accordance with the faith. They do not commit the sin of heresy. They are not subjectively in the sin. They are not in the sin of heresy objectively, and they are not subjectively heretics. Objectively, however, if I say something that's against the doctrine of the church, I'm immediately in error. If I want to be in error, then I'm a heretic. But if I just make a mistake, it doesn't make me a heretic. But I might have pronounced a heresy. I might by mistake have pronounced a heresy. Happened to me once on the pulpit in Austria. Thank God. A pious lady came to the sacristy and said, "Father, did you realize what you were saying?" I said, "No, what?" She told me. I said, "Thank God, I celebrated Mass the next day in the same parish, and I explained everything from the pulpit." So I did not stay a heretic, so to speak. I never was, because I never rejected the truth. But objectively speaking, now, independent of the state of the soul of a person, this is one of the major distinctions. You will find it in the tape recorded in LA. And please listen to these distinctions. Make sure you're able to operate with those distinctions. Otherwise, you'll never be able to understand or judge in theology. Somebody may be free of sin and yet objectively outside the church, because he doesn't know better. I don't think that a Russian Orthodox Pope, they all called popes there, a Russian Orthodox Pope somewhere in Siberia, I don't think that he was told about the differences of the creed of the Latin and the creed in the Orthodox Church. I don't think that anybody ever explained the papal infallibility to him. I don't think that anybody ever explained the papal primacy to him. As a Russian Orthodox priest, he rejects the papal primacy. As a Russian Orthodox priest, he rejects the papal infallibility, and thus is both a schismatic and a heretic. But if he doesn't know that he's a heretic and a schismatic, then he does not commit the sin of heresy and schism. However, objectively speaking, he is. And this is the whole point. The infallibility of the church is still there, because the priests who celebrate the new Mass, and especially the priests who foster the new Mass and defend it, they are outside the church, objectively. How God will judge them, I don't know, and it's none of my business. Judge ye not that you not be judged. Anybody says that Father Hess said they are all in heresy and will all go to hell is committing a grave sin against the 8th commandment. I never said that. I just said that objectively they're outside the church. Subjectively, I don't know. I don't want to know. God only can judge. And this is the reason why when Archbishop Lefebvre and I and other priests reject the new Mass because of reasons of faith, we stay in the Catholic Church no matter what the official pronouncements are. We are the ones who stay in the Catholic Church. Now, some people say the Society of St. Pius X always behaves and speaks as if they were the Catholic Church. That is slander. You ask any of their priests, if he follows the directions of his superiors, he will tell you, no, it is not us who is the Catholic Church, we just belong to it. And anybody who does not contradict tradition belongs to the Catholic Church. And anybody who contradicts tradition does not belong to the Catholic Church. So the infallibility and the indefectibility always remains with the Church. Christ's promise, et porte inferi non prevalebunt adversus eam, the gates of hell shall not prevail against them, is still a prophecy. It is still true. It always will be true. It is people like it's people like the bishops who say the new Mass who put themselves outside the church. It is the bishops who say that homosexuality is just a defect, and it may be a defect by birth, who put themselves outside the church. It is the priests who say, and the vast majority of priests in this country say that now, who say that the Blessed Sacrament is only symbolically present, who put themselves outside the church. It's not Archbishop Lefebvre or I. And priests who celebrate the old Mass, not for reasons of faith, but because they just prefer it, They put themselves objectively outside the Church. Anybody who signs Vatican II puts himself objectively outside the Church. You cannot sign heresy. You must not. You cannot defend Vatican II. I've tried for 10 years. I've tried to interpret Vatican II in a Catholic way. It's not possible. It's in direct contradiction to tradition. It's in direct contradiction to the magisterium, as I have proven on the tape that will be soon available to you.